So about RNG in anime, this doesn't apply to all animes out there. Some are pretty light with how much RNG they give the main character and other characters in general, but it does apply to a majority of animes out there. If you don't know what I mean by RNG, basically it is how much the author adds convenience for the characters in the show, and especially if it's thrown in last minute and not something that was built towards or at least hinted at. Some like to call it plot armor, but calling it RNG better suits it because it really is random shit thrown in at the character's convenience. So like in Dragon Ball, with characters being able to pop a senzu bean, just being able to get the shit beat out of you whenever, because you can just pop a senzu bean and be back in the fight. Stuff that's added in for convenience to keep the story going, and it's actually fine in some scenarios. Having RNG added in isn't that big of an issue in some cases, it's just how the author decides to implement it. If the author gives absolutely no effort in trying to weave it into the story and just shoves it in last minute when the characters need it, that's pretty bad for the story overall. It just dilutes the quality of it in my opinion. Another great example would be My Hero Academia. At least in the beginning, My Hero was also one of these types of shows, and that convenience they created in the show was a kissing nurse. She popped up after Deku broke his arm or something in the entrance exam, basically giving Deku a free pass to use his power whenever he wanted to, even though he wasn't supposed to use it, or at least all of it, until his body was ready for it. So for like the next 2 seasons, Deku used this as a crutch until he was able to get full cowling. Deku was able to show no remorse for his body, and he kept messing it up, but it would be fine because he could just get a kiss from that nurse and she would heal him back to full health. I mean, it isn't as bad as RNG in other shows, because later on they talked about how the nurse's healing power isn't an instant heal. It just speeds up your body's healing process or something like that, and because of that, there is a limit to how many times you can heal it back up. So at least in that scenario, even though it was for a while instant healing basically, they added some downsides to using it to give Deku a reason to stop relying on her healing. There's not really any animes with zero RNG. In every anime, there's at least a little RNG here and there. I guess the goal would be to make it as low as possible. If I had to say what show has the least RNG, at least from what I have seen, probably either Berserk or Vagabond. If you read Berserk, you can probably imagine why I said it, but honestly probably Vagabond even more so. Vagabond is more of a story about a guy who's a swordsman trying to find his purpose basically, so it has him taking everything, including his downfalls. I honestly can't think of any time in that manga where it was an RNG moment. As for Berserk, it's hard to say that there isn't negative RNG in that show. I mean, it must have negative RNG to get the adaptation that it did. Well, the 2016 anime only. The other adaptations are actually good, especially the movies. They're what got me introduced to the series in the first place. I don't want to really say anything for anyone who has not read it, and if you haven't, you definitely should read it. It's really good. Even if you aren't one for reading mangas, you should really read it. I talked about this in another video earlier, but if you read a manga you really like, it is definitely as good or even more enjoyable than animes, just that it's on paper and not on a screen. I mean, it isn't really enough to confirm anything, but there's a very small chance that Berserk will get animated again. I think it was from the team that animated Castlevania. There was a comment about them being down to animate Berserk if they ever got the chance to. I personally have not watched Castlevania yet. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I don't know what exactly it is about, but I have seen some small clips of it, and the animation is really good. So if Berserk got that treatment, it would do really well financially. I wouldn't say it is worth watching it in an anime form rather than the manga, unless it was done by a really good studio, because the manga's art is really fucking good. But yeah, the story in Berserk is one where I feel like everything is put against the main cast as much as possible. That's probably why it has lured such a huge and dedicated fan base, because it is really rare for that to happen, with a combination of good storytelling and amazing artwork. That's probably the only series where people would forgive RNG. You just end up feeling so bad for the characters with what they have to go through, that you don't mind them getting a little break and relief. But still, even that is a rare occurrence in the story. What inspired me to make this video was another series I'm watching right now. It has been going on for a year at this point and has like 12 episodes left before it is over. The series I'm talking about is Shaman King. It's an alright series in my opinion. I thought it would be crazy good with how many people were anticipating it and stuff, but they probably just got filled with nostalgia, I'm guessing, because this is a remake of the anime. There is another anime, but something happened that messed up the story, at least from my understanding, so they decided to redo it. It's honestly nothing crazy. I wouldn't say you shouldn't or should watch it. It's about average, I would say, but in the new episode, it got a pretty bad dose of RNG. Basically, there was a tournament going on, and the main cast team was going up against a really strong team. They looked like they would probably lose, but one of them put out this ancient spirit out of nowhere that could help them train, and the convenient part is that it would make them strong enough to beat them overnight. It was pretty forced and came out of nowhere. The show does has its moments, but that episode was pretty boring to be honest. But yeah, that's all I had to say mostly about RNG and anime. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe for future content. Peace.